The first shots cracked through the canyon like thunder. What started as a quiet patrol turned into chaos in seconds. Dust clouds rising, gunfire echoing off the rock walls, radios hissing with overlapping screams. The platoon dove for cover behind broken Humvees and sand mounds, scrambling to return fire. "Snipers! East Ridge!" Someone yelled. "Negative. West, too. They've got us in a crossfire." Bullets sliced the air, sparks flying off steel. The canyon that had looked so calm an hour ago was now a furnace of lead and noise. Sergeant Cole pressed his back against a half-shattered truck, eyes scanning through the smoke. "Where's the overwatch? Where the hell is our cover fire?" "Offline, sir," the comms operator shouted. Radios jammed. Before he could finish, a mortar hit 30 yards away. The ground shook violently, spraying dirt and shrapnel across their helmets. Men coughed, ears ringing, lungs burning, pinned, surrounded, outgunned. Cole glanced down the line, soldiers breathing hard, hands trembling, dust mixing with sweat. He'd seen fear before, but this was something else. The canyon had become a coffin. Then his gaze caught someone moving, not diving for safety, not crawling like the rest, standing. At first, he thought it was a mirage in the heat. A lone figure in desert fatigues, helmet cracked, walking upright through the smoke. Who the hell? Cole froze, squinting. It was her. Private Lara Keene, combat medic, transfer from a field hospital unit just 2 weeks ago. Quiet, polite, always volunteering for the dirtiest jobs. Nobody had really noticed her much, until now. What is she doing? Someone shouted. "She's in the open." Cole's heart pounded. The kill zone, that exposed stretch of sand between the wrecks, was a death trap. 2 snipers had it zeroed in. The moment anyone moved, they were gone, and yet she was walking straight into it. Keene. "Get down!" Cole roared into the comms. "That's an order." Her voice came back, calm but firm. "Can't, sir. They're still out there." Cole blinked, confused. They? Then he saw it. A cluster of figures sprawled halfway between the lines. 2 soldiers unmoving, one still screaming, clutching his leg. The others, gone quiet. Every instinct screamed at him to stop her. But before he could shout again, she was already gone. A blur in the haze. Keene sprinted low through the chaos, sliding behind debris, hands steady despite the noise. Every few meters, bullets snapped past her, the sharp, angry whine of near misses. Dust kicked up around her boots. She reached the first man, Jenkins, the radio tech. His chest plate cracked, breathing ragged. "Stay with me," she murmured, tearing open her medkit. Her voice was soft. Steady, like the gunfire didn't exist. She patched, bandaged, lifted, alone. From behind cover, Cole and the others watched in stunned silence. Someone whispered, "She's out of her mind." Another soldier shook his head slowly. "No, she knows exactly what she's doing." As Keene dragged Jenkins toward the nearest wreck, the enemy fire intensified. They were trying to take her down. Tracers streaked inches above her head. A bullet tore through her sleeve. Another clipped her helmet. But she didn't stop. Every step was deliberate. Every breath measured. By the time she crossed half the distance back to cover, Cole was already shouting orders. "Cover fire! Lay it down now!" The squad opened up, rounds flying over her path. The air filled with thunder again. Keene didn't look back. She just kept walking, dragging 200 pounds of wounded soldier through the kill zone like gravity didn't exist. When she finally stumbled behind the barricade, Cole grabbed her by the shoulder. "Are you insane?" he shouted, half in anger, half in disbelief. Keene just looked at him. Dirt streaked across her face. "Eyes cold and clear, sir," she said. "I wasn't going to let them die alone." Then she picked up her rifle and went back out. The air still smelled of gunpowder and burnt rubber. Cole crouched behind cover, wiping dust from his face, staring in disbelief as Keene disappeared back into the smoke. "She's going again," someone yelled. Cole cursed under his breath. What the hell drives someone like that? But deep down, he knew. You don't move like that. You don't choose to walk into death, unless you've already been there before. 2 weeks earlier, when Keene had arrived on base, no one paid her much attention. A medic from a rear-line hospital, transferred after a supply convoy attack. She looked too small for combat gear, too quiet for the chaos that surrounded her. During orientation, one of the recruits had laughed. "You sure you're in the right place, Doc?" "The aid tents are that way." She hadn't replied, just looked at him once, calm and unflinching, the kind of look that made you stop smiling without knowing why. Later, when the others hit the range, she'd stood alone, watching. Then, without a word, picked up a rifle. Her first 3 shots hit the target dead center. The rest, tighter, cleaner, perfect. Cole had noticed that too. He'd made a note in her file. Keene. Unusual control under pressure. He didn't know what it meant at the time. Now he did. Out in the canyon, the firefight hadn't stopped. If anything, it was getting worse. The enemy had numbers, height, and precision. Every few seconds, a sniper's round pinged off the rocks beside them. And still, that same figure kept moving forward. Keene crawled, ducked, rolled, and sprinted through debris, as if she could see the rhythm of the battle others couldn't. One bullet grazed her shoulder. She didn't flinch. Another hit her pack. She dropped, rolled, and kept going. She found the second downed man, Ramirez, bleeding out near a wrecked jeep. He was young, maybe 19, pale, trembling, whispering something about home. Keene pressed her palm against his wound. "Breathe slow," she said softly. "I've got you." Her movements were mechanical, practiced. No panic, no wasted motion. She tore her sleeve, made a tourniquet, and dragged him toward a half-collapsed wall. Bullets cracked around her like angry insects. Cole shouted for covering fire again, but the team was running low on ammo. "We can't keep this up," one of them yelled. Cole didn't care. "Then throw rocks if you have to. She's not dying out there." Inside the storm, Keene's mind wasn't on herself. Each sound, the zip of rounds, the thump of mortars, felt strangely distant, controlled. She had learned long ago that fear wasn't something to suppress. It was something to carry. Her father's voice echoed in her head. "Courage isn't about being fearless, kid. It's about being the one who moves anyway." She'd buried him 5 years earlier, a combat medic like her, killed in a forward rescue attempt much like this one. She'd never forgotten the letter he'd left her before deployment. If someone's bleeding and everyone else freezes, be the one who moves. Now, that voice was all she had. Cole's radio crackled. "Sir, we're losing signal. She's too far." Then static, and silence. Everyone waited, watching the dust and smoke where she'd vanished. Seconds dragged into minutes. Then, faintly, a silhouette emerged again. She was limping this time. Her uniform torn, face streaked with grime. But she was dragging Ramirez with one arm and carrying his rifle in the other. The squad fell silent. Even the gunfire seemed to fade for a heartbeat. Cole stared. "That's not bravery," he muttered. "That's something else." She collapsed beside the sandbag line, lowering Ramirez gently. Blood soaked her gloves, her breathing ragged, but her eyes were alive, cold, focused. "2 down," she said, reloading. "1 left." And before anyone could stop her, she stepped back into the fire. Smoke and dust hung low over the canyon, blurring the edges between the living and the dead. The gunfire had quieted, not because the enemy had stopped, but because both sides were reloading, repositioning, waiting for the next brutal wave. Cole crouched behind the armored vehicle, eyes darting between his squad and the open ground. The radio hissed weakly with static, then went dead again. Keene was somewhere out there in that fog, and every second she didn't answer made his chest tighten a little more. "Sir?" Jenkins said, voice hoarse. "We can't hold much longer." "Ammo's almost gone." Cole didn't respond, his gaze fixed on a shape in the sand, movement about 50 yards out, near the wrecked Humvee. A hand, barely visible through the haze. Someone was still alive out there. Cole cursed. "We've got 1 more down, far side." Before he could issue an order, a shadow moved behind him. It was Keene, blood on her sleeve, face streaked with dirt, breathing hard but steady. "I'll get him," she said quietly. Cole turned, furious. "You're not going anywhere, Keen!" "You've done enough. That's an order." She met his glare with eyes that didn't waver. "That's one order I can't follow." Cole slammed his hand on the hood. "You'll die out there. Then at least he won't die alone." And just like that, she was gone again, disappearing into the smoke like a ghost. The last man, Corporal Davis, lay twisted in the sand, half covered by debris. A bullet had gone clean through his thigh, pinning him down. Every time he tried to crawl, a sniper's round kicked up dust inches from his head. He had already stopped screaming. He was just staring at the sky, waiting, until he heard boots. "Don't move," came a calm voice. "You're gonna make it." His vision blurred, but he saw her, helmet cracked, uniform dark with blood, moving like she was made of iron. "Keen?" He rasped. She smiled faintly. "In the flesh." A sniper shot hit close. She dropped instantly, pressing flat into the sand beside him. Another round whistled over them. 2 more followed. They were boxed in. "Can you move?" she asked. "No, see good," she said dryly. "Then I'll move for both of us." Back at the line, Cole's squad watched helplessly through binoculars. "She's not gonna make it," Jenkins whispered. Cole gritted his teeth. "She'll make it," but even he didn't believe it. Keen counted the rhythm of shots. Sniper fire had a tempo, a deadly, predictable rhythm. Fire. Reload. 3 seconds. She waited until the instant between. "Now," she muttered. She grabbed Davis by the harness and rolled hard to the left, dragging him behind a broken axle. The sniper missed by inches. "Almost there," she said. Half to herself, another burst, closer this time. She grunted as a fragment sliced her side. Still, she didn't stop. Crawling, dragging, bleeding. She pushed forward inch by inch, whispering, "Just a little farther." Then, a sudden, thunderous crack. One final bullet tore into the ground beside her head. She froze. Silence. Then, nothing. From behind the sandbags, Cole shouted into the radio again, voice breaking. "Keen, do you copy? Do you—" Static, then faintly. "Target neutralized." "Bringing him in." Cole's head snapped up. "Say again?" He raised his binoculars. And there she was, half stumbling, half carrying Davis across the sand. Behind her, smoke rose from the enemy ridge. One sniper post, now burning. She hit them. Jenkins breathed. Cole didn't answer. He just stared. Because Keen wasn't carrying only a wounded man. She was also dragging a captured enemy rifle, the sniper's. She'd taken him out herself. By the time she reached the line again, the squad had fallen silent. Cole met her halfway. "You disobeyed a direct order," he said quietly. Keen smiled weakly. "You're welcome, sir." Then she collapsed at his feet. The medics rushed in as soon as Keen hit the ground. Her pulse was weak, breathing ragged, and her uniform was soaked with more than one man's blood. Cole knelt beside her, pulling off his gloves. "Stay with me, Keen, you hear me?" Her eyelids fluttered, and for a moment she smiled faintly. "Didn't let him die alone," she whispered. Cole gritted his teeth. "You didn't just save him. You saved all of us." But she didn't respond. Her head tilted to the side as the medics carried her toward the evac truck, a V line snaking from her arm. The canyon was silent now, eerily so. Smoke still curled from the cliffs, and the smell of burned fuel clung to the air. The sun was setting, painting the sand in the color of old blood. Jenkins stood beside Cole, watching the stretcher disappear toward the horizon. "Sir," he said softly, "what if she doesn't make it?" Cole didn't look at him. "She will. People like her always do." He said it with conviction, but his eyes told a different story, one heavy with doubt, guilt, and something else, admiration. Hours passed. Reinforcements finally roared in, convoys, medevacs, and an entire rescue wing that had arrived too late for the real fight. A young lieutenant stepped out, scanning the damage. "Jesus, looks like hell out here," Cole exhaled sharply. "That's about right," They walked together through the scorched sand, past blackened vehicles and shell casings glinting in the dying light. The lieutenant shook his head. "How'd you hold this long? You were outnumbered 3-1. Cole didn't answer immediately. He stopped near a blood trail that stretched across the ground. 2 sets of prints, one heavy, one dragging. He stared down at it for a long moment before replying. Because of her. In the field tent, Keen lay unconscious, oxygen mask rising and falling weakly with each breath. Her hands were raw, torn open from dragging a man twice her size across the rocks. One of the medics adjusted her IV and whispered, "She shouldn't have been walking. Her vitals are a mess. She lost too much blood." Cole stood at the foot of the cot, staring silently. He didn't speak until the others stepped out. Then, in a low voice only she could hear, he said, "You weren't supposed to be here, Keen. They told me to send you home. Said you were too small, too quiet, too something." He paused, fists tightening, "But you proved them all wrong." He reached into his pocket and pulled out her name tag, the one that had been torn off during the fight. He placed it on her chest. "You earned this more than any of us." Later that night, the base lights flickered back on. Radio chatter filled the air again. Mission updates, evac reports, command briefings, but Cole ignored them all. He sat outside the tent, looking toward the horizon, where the wind whispered through the dark. Behind him, footsteps approached. "Jenkins." "Sir, command wants a debrief. They're asking who led the last assault." Cole didn't move. He just said quietly, "Put it under her name." Jenkins frowned. "She's a specialist, not command." "I don't care what her rank says," Cole interrupted. "She led it." There was silence. Then Jenkins nodded slowly. Hours later, Keen stirred. Her eyes opened to the soft hum of generators and the faint sound of men laughing outside, alive because of her. Cole noticed immediately and stepped closer. She blinked at him, voice barely a whisper. "Did we make it?" Cole smiled for the first time in days. "We made it because of you." She tried to sit up, wincing. "Davis?" "He's stable," Cole said. "Owes you a lifetime." Keen nodded faintly. "Good. Then it was worth it." Her voice faded again, and she fell back onto the pillow, finally allowing herself to rest. Outside, the storm that had once swallowed them had finally cleared. But for the men who survived, the legend of what happened in that canyon, the woman who walked into the kill zone and came back carrying one of their own, would never fade. They stopped calling her Rookie after that day. From then on, she had only one name in the unit logs, the Ghost of Red Canyon. The morning after the firefight, the desert was silent. The only movement came from the slow, synchronized march of soldiers carrying out the wounded. Keen was among them, pale, hooked to monitors, her pulse faint but steady. Colonel Hayes's helicopter touched down just after sunrise. Dust spiraled around his boots as he stepped out, scanning the wreckage. Half the vehicles were charred metal. The canyon walls bore the black scars of explosions, but among the wreckage the American flag still stood, half buried, tattered, and stubbornly upright. Hayes turned to Captain Cole. "Report." Cole's voice was hoarse, sleep-deprived. 23 wounded, no fatalities among the survivors. "We held the line until evac." The colonel's brows furrowed. "You held the line? With half a squad?" Cole nodded slowly. "Because of one soldier." He motioned toward the medevac tent. Hayes followed, his boots crunching over burnt gravel. When he reached the tent flap, he froze. There she was. The woman command had dismissed. The one they'd nearly sent home. Bandaged, unconscious, but alive. Hayes whispered, "She's the one who took down the mortar nests?" Cole nodded, and dragged Sergeant Davis back 2 clicks under fire. For a long moment, the colonel said nothing. Then quietly, "I want her citation written before the sun sets." Word spread like wildfire. Within hours, every soldier in the base knew her name. Specialist Ava Keen. The men who had doubted her were now silent when her name came up. The ones who had mocked her small frame or her quiet tone couldn't meet each other's eyes. By afternoon, a message came from command headquarters. Pending recommendation, Silver Star. But the recognition didn't sit right with Cole. He'd seen what Keen did. Not for medals. Not for headlines, but because she couldn't watch her team die while she still had breath left in her. When a military journalist arrived days later, asking for interviews, Cole shut the tent flap in his face. "You weren't there," he said flatly, "and you'll never understand. Still, stories leaked. Satellite photos of the canyon, wreckage, smoke trails, and a lone figure's path traced through the sand, circulated quietly through classified networks. And among soldiers on bases half a world away, a legend started forming. They didn't call her Ava Keen anymore. They called her Ghostwalker. The nickname spread first in whispers, then in official call-outs. It wasn't just about the way she moved unseen or how she survived against odds that broke others. It was about the silence she carried. The quiet that made even the toughest soldiers stop talking when she walked into a room. 2 weeks later, Keen woke up in a recovery unit in Germany. White walls. Machines humming. The faint smell of disinfectant. Her first instinct was to reach for her rifle, but it wasn't there. Instead, a nurse's voice cut through the haze. "Easy, Sergeant. You're safe now," she blinked. "Sergeant?" The nurse smiled. "Promotion came through yesterday. You earned it." Keen sank back, tears catching in her eyes. Not from pride, but from memory. The screams, the smoke, the faces of those who didn't make it. She looked out the window, whispering, "They all got out?" From the doorway, Captain Cole answered, "Because of you." He stepped inside, his uniform crisp but his eyes tired. "They're calling you a hero, you know." Keen gave a faint, bitter smile. "Heroes don't leave people behind." Cole shook his head. "No, but you didn't. That night, long after lights out, she found a small package on her bedside table. Inside was a silver dog tag, scuffed. Dented but polished clean, her own. On the back, someone had scratched 5 words. For those who walked away. She ran her thumb over the engraving and exhaled. The medal, the promotion, the headlines, none of it mattered. What mattered was that, for once, the quiet soldier had been seen. Years passed, and the canyon where she walked into the kill zone was marked on no official maps, no monument, no plaque. Just coordinates, burned into the memories of those who were there. But stories have a way of surviving what the military tries to bury. In briefing rooms, instructors told recruits about decision-making under fire. They'd speak of calm, courage, and composure, and never naming her, but always describing her. And every time, 1 or 2 veterans in the back would share a glance, the kind that says we know who they're talking about. It was in a sniper, training camp years later, that her legend came alive. Again, a young trainee, fresh out of academy, hands still trembling when loading his rifle, asked his instructor, "Sir, what's the bravest thing you've ever seen?" The instructor paused, staring past the desert horizon. Then he said quietly, "A medic walking into a kill zone like it was a hallway." No one laughed, no one breathed, because every soldier in that class had heard the whispers, the ghost walker. The woman who never ran, the one who made the canyon go silent. In Washington, her silver star sat in a glass case inside the Pentagon's Hall of Valor, unnamed. The inscription simply read, "For extraordinary courage in the face of overwhelming fire." Command had wanted to attach a name, but she refused. Let it stand for anyone who ever stayed. Standing, she told them, and so it did. Years later, during another conflict, another squad was pinned down. Eerily similar terrain. Eerily similar chaos. The radio crackled with static. Voices panicked. Then, through the interference, a female voice came over comms. "Hold position." "I'm going in." The captain froze. "Identify yourself." The reply came steady, calm, unshaken. "Call sign. Ghostwalker." For a split second, the whole channel went silent. Of course, it couldn't be her. She'd retired years ago, but that didn't matter. What mattered was that someone else had taken the name, not as imitation, but as inheritance. In time, Ghostwalker became more than a name, it became a creed. Every medic, Sniper and recon soldier who stepped forward when everyone else stepped back. They were called that. Quietly. Respectfully. A title you didn't earn through rank or medals, only through action, and somewhere, in a small cabin in Montana, Ava Keene, retired, grayer, still steady, watched the news one evening as a military anchor mentioned the name Ghostwalker again. She smiled faintly, shaking her head. "I told them not to use that," she murmured. From the corner, her daughter looked up from her homework. "What's a Ghostwalker, Mom?" Keene turned, her eyes soft but sharp as ever. "It's someone who doesn't wait for orders," she said quietly. "Someone who walks forward when everyone else hits the ground." Her daughter blinked, processing. "Like you?" Keene smiled, but didn't answer. Outside, the wind moved through the trees like a whisper through sand. A group of new recruits stood at the edge of a desert cliff, wind whipping through their uniforms. A tour guide pointed down at the ruins of an old battlefield. "This," he said, "is where the kill zone used to be." He crouched, brushing away dust from a half-buried rock. Faint letters had been carved into it, almost erased by time. "Courage doesn't shout." The recruits stood in silence, the meaning sinking in, and as the sun set behind the ridges, the shadow of one lone figure seemed to stretch longer than the rest. A ghost walking through memory. Everyone took cover that day, except the woman who taught the world how to stand.